The budget is probably the most important uh, statement that a city could make. Where you're investing your money is the direction of where you want to take your city. So I'm going to try to go through this as briefly as possible, and then we could open it up for some questions. What you have here in front of you now is basically what the dollar looks like for the resident in the city of Hialeah. And what we're going to be speaking more than anything is about the 33% that corresponds to the city. But it's important that residents understand that when they pay their taxes, if you're a resident in the city of Hialeah, you're paying various taxes to the county, to the school board, to the city of Hialeah. There's some debt and and there's some fees that we as taxpayers pay. I think it's interesting to note that in the city of Hialeah, we pay more to our school board than we do to the city of Hialeah. And yet in the city of Hialeah, we are responsible for providing a lot of services. Yet the school board charges more in taxes. And I could tell you with a certain amount of certainty that many of the schools in the city of Hialeah, public schools, are at half capacity. So we're paying more in taxes to the school board than we do to the city of Hialeah, and I think that's critically important. So let me bring you to this slide here. So you heard the property appraiser earlier this year talk about how cities were flush with money, and that he advised that cities should reduce their millage rate. And we started taking that serious. We looked at a deep analysis of that. And we've noticed, and what's listed here are all the cities that went down the path of reducing their millage rate. And if you note, which Hialeah is marked out in yellow, even with the reduction in many cases of cities lowering their millage rate, the city of Hialeah continues to be lower than those cities. Furthermore, if you draw your attention to the far right hand of this chart, it shows you how much per resident we are charging the city, the folks of the city of Hialeah for services. $412 per resident. That is not only the lowest in South Florida, I venture to say it's probably second to third lowest in the entire state of Florida. What that means is that the resident in the city of Hialeah today is paying $412 in this budget per resident compared to other municipalities that are paying much, much higher, say in some cases, 10 times higher than what they're paying in the city of Hialeah. And I think it's extremely important because it underlines a reality and a fact. And sorry if I'm bouncing around some of these charts here. The historic millage rate in the city of Hialeah, historic millage rate continues to be at an all-time low. In fact, while this chart goes back to 1996, and I want to acknowledge that Commissioner Rene Garcia is here, who was on the city council, I believe in 97 when he got elected. But if we go back all the way to 1996, where the millage rate was at 8.23%, if you've noticed, and it's that chart that kind of like a salmon color, it'll show you that the millage rate in the city of Hialeah progressively had been going down. Mayors had lowered the millage rate to the 6.3 that we've been using now for the last 10 years. But that 6.3 represents, I believe, historically, the lowest millage rate in the history of the city of Hialeah, going back all the way to the 60s. This is as far as low as we've been able to find it. But what does that translate as far as the city of Hialeah is concerned? So what that does, and again, bear with me as I jump around, it takes us to the general revenue portion. I'm sorry, hold on. Okay. It brings us to the money that comes into the city. Please understand that what the city receives as far as tax revenue is concerned, a small portion of that is what gives us the ability, basically general revenue, what allows us to move money around. Of the $183 million, the pie chart here will show you where we've invested. And if you'll notice, between fire and police and 911 represents 71% of the investment for the city of Hialeah. And why is that? As I've been knocking on doors now for the last 20 years in this city, one thing has been paramount. People want safety and security. They've asked us to invest specifically in this space. And if I could label this budget a name, if I could give it a name, I would tell you this is a police budget. We've invested heavily in police. We've done a couple of things, not just name a new director of the police department, but also work in a way to get our police department back to a level of professionalism that I was used to while I was here in the city council. And what does that mean? That means we invest more in our police department. We were the training ground for police departments all over Miami-Dade County. And I want to underscore this, that the residents of the city of Hialeah were funding the training of police officers that after 4 or 5 years would leave here for better salaries in other departments. The residents were subsidizing, basically, the training of police officers that have gone on to shine in other departments. So I made it a concerted effort that I wanted to make sure that we invested in this space, in a police space, so that we could retain officers. We have to stop officers leaving here after they get 5 years of training, and then the benefit goes to other cities. And not only did we do it at the salary end, we also did it on the take home. We made an investment, and we're making an investment to allow police officers to take home cars. We believe it does a couple of things. One, again, it puts us on par with other departments. Also, police officer that lives in the city of Hialeah who is driving a car home lends a sense of security to the neighborhood. I remember as a child growing up in a neighborhood where we had a police officer living there, when his car was parked in that neighborhood, for whatever reason, maybe it was a false sense of security, but you felt more secure because the police officer's car was there. 71% of our expenditure is going to first responders, police, fire, and 911 communication. As I stated earlier, there are many avenues of money that come into the city, from ad valorem, charge for services, franchise fees. They're all posted on these things. What's very important is what I control as far as the millage rate, which is ad valorem, which is the $92 million. And if we compare it to last year, that's where you've seen the growth in the city of Hialeah. A roughly $11 million growth for the city of Hialeah, which is a product of all the investments we've seen in the city. The growth in our budget is a direct product from the investments you see, Pura Vida, the Shoma Home project, the projects that are coming online throughout the city, the Lee Art District, the Amelia District. All those investments, and especially the annex area, are sparing or promoting the growth in our budget. So the question would be is, what do I do with that growth? And I made a decision that not only did I want to invest in the areas that people have asked me to, which was police, primarily first responders, but also there was a gross negligence in our facilities. The other request many people had asked me about was parks. Why are we not investing more in parks? Why are our parks closed on weekends? Well, we've made an effort not only to bring programming back and investing to make sure our parks are open, I do want to draw your eyes to these slides here. So I'm, again, in a very transparent way, I'm interviewing a facility manager, an asset manager. And part of that interview process, I asked the managers, the people that are interviewing, to go to Bucky Dent, one park in the city, and do a review of the park and give me recommendations of what they saw. What was, again, an interview process became a very sobering moment for me, and in actuality a vindication of the decisions of what way we made them. These pictures that you see here is Bucky Dent. At Bucky Dent we have a pool, baseball fields, we have a special populations building, we have a basketball gymnasium, and also playground for our children. The pictures that you're seeing here are the conditions of these buildings. And if you notice, in some of these pictures, not only do we have water leaks, water damages, if you were to go on the floor, this is a floor. If you look on the basketball floor at these ends, and some of you know that my love for basketball, these floors are product of neglect, of water intrusion that has literally been ignored for years. This is something that the city of Hialeah has invested in over the years and has ignored over the last couple of years. Again, this is all a signature facility that we use not only to promote youth activities, but we also engage third parties to be able to use our gym for activities. This is the roof of the facility. Not only is the roof in disrepair, My understanding is also the lightning rods, which are those rods that would draw lightning away from the building to help make sure somebody doesn't get electrocuted. They're basically laid out all over the roof, unattended basically. This is just part of the reason why we could not fall into the trap of turning around for political purposes and either cut or give back money to the taxpayer, when again, most of the growth in our city was due to this investment that we've seen, which has helped us greatly and has helped us keep our millage rate flat. But this is all, the pool condition, which has been closed. Again, just a facility that looked in complete disrepair, which I believe puts us at great risk if it's not attended. And this is just one park. One park. Can't even imagine what's going on with some of the other parks. I'm sorry. So let me go back. Oh, I hope I didn't mess this up. Okay. So when we talk about, and I think this, I hope this is the right thing. Oh, and I don't. Okay. Let me just not mess around too much with it. Okay. So when we look at this slide, I hope it comes up here. Perfect. When we talk about a 1% reduction, which some have entertained, I want you to understand what that means to the resident of the city of Hialeah. The 1% reduction equates to $16.19 of savings per year. $16.19. If you divide that by 12, we're looking at basically 2 and change. That would be the grand savings of a 1%. And I've already laid out some of the issues that we have in this city of why it was so critical that we reinvest in our city. I also should add, I don't know what the economy is going to look like in the next year or two. If I fall into the temptation, or if I would have fallen into the temptation, I want to thank the City Council for supporting me in passing this. If we fall into the temptation of lowering the millage rate, that $16 savings, I might have had to come back in subsequent years and quadruple the ask to make up for the lost revenue in order to continue to be able to meet our obligations. A 2% reduction would have been $32.37. A 3% reduction, $48 per year. Now, I know many have wanted to say that a tax increase is what has spurred on the market as far as the rental community. I want to be clear on something. What we're seeing in our community as far as rental market is more based on supply and demand than it is on taxes and on insurance. Yes, taxes and insurance are contributors, make no mistake about it, but that usually explains when you have an increase of $100 to $150 in a new lease agreement. What we're seeing of $600 and $700, as we saw earlier in this year, make no mistake about it, this is supply and demand. If you do not have enough supply in the community, the capitalist market will take over, and what will happen is that competition will spur, and it will not bring down prices if you do not have enough units. That's why, and I'll state it here now, we're going to continue to promote and support growth in our city. Not only does it help us as far as our budget is concerned, it keeps our millage rate flat, and it's the only way that we're going to be able to start moving our city in the right direction and not keep it in this malaise of, do more with less. The residents of the city of Hialeah, in my opinion, deserve more. There's one other factor here that I know many have talked about, and I think it's extremely important to understand. Water in our city. I am not blind to the fact, nor I'm deaf to the fact that when I've knocked on doors, many residents have talked to me about water and sewer and water rates. And the county has raised its water, and we have acted as a pass-through. But many residents have complained about the high level of water that they're paying. We've done 2 things in this budget that I think could help. One is we've suspended our CPI increase, which in essence represents a $5.36 million or $5 a month cost to the city. While the county raised it an average of about $8, we're eating about five and change, which leads to the resident about $3.55 as far as an increase. I know that's not acceptable to them, and we're going to continue to work in different ways on how we address this water issue. One of the things that we're going to do, we're going to create a pilot program authorized by the City Council. We're working on the details of it, and there's other models out there that exist which will allow residents of the city of Hialeah that show hardship or have need demonstrated, documented that they'll be eligible for discounts in their water, and that we're going to try this for about a 6-month period. And I do this, and I want to be clear on this, I want to do this very hesitantly, because many times these programs become bottomless pits, because then you start putting more money and more money and more money. And what I don't want is to create another government program that then requires continuous feeding of funds in order to keep it solvent. We're going to try this to see how it works in some of our residents, for some of our residents in need, and then work with the county, work with the state government to see how we could come up with programs to mitigate the water increase in the county and the city. It should be noted, and I think it's important to understand, water rates are not going to go down, and it has nothing to do with what the city of Hialeah is doing. As long as the county continues to have to deal with the federal lawsuit and the consent decree, water rates are going to continue to go up. It's the only way they could settle the bonds. So for anybody to say, I'm going to eliminate your water increase, I'm going to abolish it, I'm going to keep it flat, they are lying to you. We need to be honest with folks. As long as the consent decree is viable, they're going to continue to turn around and ask for increases of the ratepayer. Saying that, and I've already mentioned this on one interview, and I want to make it clear again today to everybody. We are going to embark on a mission to review whether we need a water department or not. Currently, if our water department is becoming a problem because of the add-ons, if our water department is not satisfying the needs of our residents, and if by turning the department over to the county saves the residents 35% off their water bill, we're going to seriously take a look at it. I won't do it if the savings for the residents is 5%, 10%, I don't think it's worth it. We do need to make improvements in our water department, customer service-wise, the way we pay, the way we operate. And I'm going to dedicate the next year of my administration exclusively to working in this space so that we could solve this issue, which has become such a problem for those, especially those that live in a fixed income. Also on garbage, another issue that many of you have talked to me, rightly so. Many years ago, the city decided to privatize its garbage. They did it for financial reasons. They could not sustain a garbage department at the prices that they were charging. They decided to privatize. This is what we've inherited, a private department. Now, we have done an analysis with other cities. The reason we're going to extend the contract that we have now is because the price that we've been able to lock in is preferable than having to go out to the market. What we've seen in our analysis, any garbage company that is privatized that goes out to the market is experiencing a massive increase in their monthly rate. So I made a decision to keep it stable. It doesn't mean the price doesn't go up. It's addressed to CPI, but it's also capped at 5%, so it can't go higher than 5% year to year. But this is another issue. As long as we have to take our garbage and take it to the dump, and those prices are going to increase, we're going to have to navigate this. And we need to be straight and forward with people. As inflation has hit people in the pocket, it's hit me, it's hit all of you, it also hits the city and its cost of doing business. And one last thing I want to share with you, which I think is important to understand. The city of Hialeah has unfunded obligations that has not been able to meet. If tomorrow we close this city, the city would basically owe $200+ million in unfunded liabilities from pensions, benefits that we're obligated to pay. In fact, the city of Hialeah has more employees in the retirement system than it actually has working in today's environment. That's a reality of the city of Hialeah. And it's a reality that we've been trying to work on since we first got here. I'm going to be transparent. I'm going to try to always be straight with folks. I'll try to sugarcoat it as much as I can because nobody likes to hear bad news. But the reality is the city of Hialeah passed a balanced budget this year. It attended a lot of the critical needs that people have asked for, police, parks. We're starting to see programming come back to our parks, baseball back to our parks. We're collaborating with other cities to expand the footprint of recreational sports in our city. All these things are extremely positive. Our city now, for the first time, is becoming more accountable for the money that comes in and how that money is being spent for the benefit of the residents of the city of Hialeah, and we're going to continue to do that as long as I'm the mayor of this city.